follow, and that's it, you're in. Be sure to tap the notification bell to never miss an update. Stay informed, stay empowered. Join the conversation with the Office of the Prime Minister Communications WhatsApp channel today.
Pastor J, I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
WESN.
Differences of opinion. You know, it's fine if you want to have a difference of opinion on who the greatest basketballer was of all time, you know, Jordan or LeBron. Or who is the bigger rap artist, Kendrick or Drake. But when it comes to governance, when is a difference of opinion allowed to stand? When do we look at a situation and say, well, you know, both sides are equally worthy and it's fine? We're just having a difference of opinion. There's no objective right or wrong. There's only subjective interpretation. Prime Minister said that, well, that's the headline, right? He's quite comfortable with the work of the Salaries Review Commission. I don't know if that's a direct quote, but I would have cautioned him not to say it that way. And this is the quote. I am not getting into that debate, you know. All this does is tell you that we still have freedom of expression in the country, and I am not debating the work. From this very podium, I told you before, having taken the government's position, the parliament's position, I know there are differences of opinion on the matter, so you're not telling me anything new there. There are differences of opinion. That's true. First of all, he's saying, you know, parliament's position, which to some extent lumps in the opposition leader, who she could say that she disagrees with it all she wants. But as long as the money goes into her account, you see, you can't stop the government from giving it to you, but you can't say, well, I'm donating the extra. I'm not touching it. because it's not right. So as long as she didn't say anything to that effect or close to that, one could argue the opposition is essentially accepting it, which is not something anybody expected otherwise to happen or anything else to happen. So that's one way that he's trying to lessen the blow of this issue. But the other thing is he's saying, well, it's the government's position, it's Parliament's position. Yeah, well, it's the SRC's position, but you didn't have to accept it. It's the same thing like the opposition leader. You could have said, well, the office deserves this, but I will compromise and reject the extra cash. I will donate it. There are a lot of worthy causes. I'm sure you could get a line of people outside your constituency office. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, you're not going to be an MP anymore, but you're still one right now. There could probably be a line of people outside the diplomatic center. There could be a line of people outside of pick your ministry. Social development, youth development, agriculture, trade and industry, who would love to get a hamper, which could have been paid for by this extra money that you are not saying. Notice the Prime Minister is not trying to say he deserves it or not. He's just saying, well, it's the government's position. This is, I mean, Guardian Media tried to criticize the Prime Minister on this, and he said, you are not the public. True, that is true. We'll have to see how the public wants to respond to this. And therein lies the real meat of the matter. The Prime Minister is essentially taking a pay raise, and he's basically saying, do what I say, not what I do. All right, fair enough. Now, it's, to some extent, is a subjective opinion. Is it bad or not? It's not an objective thing. There's no objective measurement to say this whole situation is bad. Think about it, right? It's not corruption. There's no law broken. What is the objective standard here? There's no objective standard, right? You could say, oh, ethics, but whose ethics? What it really boils down to, yes, it's a difference of opinion. Stakeholders, economists, members of the media have disagreed with the government, more so than the opposition. The opposition had a chance to put its money where its mouth was. The government had a chance to put its money where its mouth was. All right, now we've seen the reality, and perhaps that's what the Prime Minister is banking on. Not that the media doesn't represent the opinions of the public, but rather he knows that the opposition will mess it up once again and will follow in a similar enough fashion that this issue will only hurt the PNM and his reputation and legacy, but so far. As long as the opposition accepts the pay increases, we can't single out the PNM, regardless. Oh, we have to accept it. None of the parliamentarians, from Prime Minister all the way down to member of Parliament on the backbench who's not in a ministry, because they have, I think, one or two of those on the government side. I could be wrong. Whatever the increases are. The public servants, that was for the politicians to decide. It was a political issue. Ultimately, who gets what pay increases? This is the second time we've essentially seen the PNM and the UNC agree to pay increases. One time it was directly overtly agreeing. The second time it wasn't so much of an agreement, it was just actions speak louder than words. So this is why I say it's almost like a cartel in politics. You see? When they both do similar things, how do you differentiate which one is better or worse? The government takes the licks for the difficult policy decisions. You all can't get pay raises now. 4%, 4%, 4%. Somehow UE got away with one. 6%. Oh my gosh, huge. Meanwhile, don't worry, Camps, we have your back. Pay increases fall away. Meanwhile, the UNC is like, hey, third parties, that's my job. Hold you all back. That's what it looks like. If that's not true, that's fine. We'll have another difference of opinion. At the end of the day, regardless of how true my previous statements were, sarcastic speculation. You could interpret it that way, you could interpret it some other ways. I'm sure there are many different variations of what I just said out there in the public, circulating, percolating, fermenting. But what's the point of that? Who cares if you're upset about it? Who cares if you're enraged about it? Who cares if you don't like it? Or not, maybe you do. But for those that don't, so what? What is the point of your opinion that differs from the Prime Minister and everybody else that accepted, whether outwardly or through their actions that are contradicting their words, the pay increase? What are you going to do about it? I mean, at the end of the day, this is a country because we say it so. That's literally nation states. Think about it. There's no particular reason that TNT exists beyond the fact that we, the people that live on these two islands, say it exists. Even the acknowledgement of the international community does not matter. Because let's say we catch a VAPS on 1.5 million of us say, nah, here's no TNT, you know. We're just two random islands. But yet, somehow, like, we don't want to actually go a step further. We have this whole thing called a country. And yet, when it comes to actually participating in the country, we much rather take a step back and just complain about the poor sap who's driving the car, of how bad he's doing it. But we offer no help. We don't want to participate. We don't want to put in any effort. Hey, you can't manage things better? I don't care how hard it is. Don't look for me for help. I don't like what you're doing. What, just I should have said so? Yeah, man, I saying so in the rum shop. When I drink it with my boys. When I have a party amongst my family and friends. I saying it all the time. I'm just not saying it where it counts. So, who cares? You know what? I'll say this. Kudos to the politicians, because on this issue, they have correctly, accurately identified what the population is going to do, what the public's going to think, how far the public's going to go, and essentially, whether you know it or not, we're all being played like a fiddle, dancing to the beat of their drum, dancing to the incoherent melody of their song. But we like it so, because we'll dance to any beat. Trinbagonians are funny like that. I've seen a man whine to 80s rock. Anyway. Just wanted to highlight, before we go into the daily review, there's another worker. Based on the reports, it seems as though some criminals went on a mini crime spree, multiple robberies, a home invasion, and one murder. The victim, 21-year-old subway worker. I don't know if somehow he was magically involved in something or not, but based on the stories, the answer to that, I think it's a reasonable assumption to say no, he was not. In fact, again, this is one of those reports where young man, 21, working for his money in subway, doesn't interfere with anybody. I mean, if you were a gangster, why would you do an 8 to 5 in a fast food restaurant? Most people tend to try to avoid those kind of jobs like the plague, right? Doesn't interfere with nobody, work for his dollars at Subway. Real respectable little young man. Dead. Again, this is where, you know, we want to have a difference of opinion on the pay increase, because when one of the government's strategies for dealing with crime is to tell young men, say no to crime, far too often the victims in murder cases are not just gangsters killing gangsters. It's young men leading normal lives responsibly, ending up dead. Just want to highlight that. Some not so bad news. Tobago fishermen rescued after 4 days. We have to be, I guess you could say, thankful. This could just as easily been a disaster. I don't know how much luck was involved. But this shows that, I guess to some extent, it's not that we're not capable. Luckily, TEMA and the other agencies kept searching. Reports are they found no boat debris. 4 days, lack of food and water, but it was still within luckily another fisherman saw them. They had a good head on their shoulders. They tied themselves down to a pot, trying to not drift away, which was one of the concerns of the rescue efforts. This is just one of those things. I do wonder if, to some extent, more safety courses, and I say that as a very generalization, because I don't necessarily know what it would be fully involved in that. Not just with regards to maintenance of your equipment, particularly in this case your boat and whatever, but also having, I guess, backup equipment. I don't know how useful an oar is for a pirogue or two. The capacity to swim. A backup, well, that might be a luxury, a backup motor. Having a second outboard just there for no reason. But it's some good news there. Then some not so good news. We just spoke about this possibility, I think, maybe Friday. I'm not entirely sure what caused it, but there was a 7-vehicle collision on the Churchill Roosevelt Highway, and this is one of the things about the highway that we need to understand. You get into a traffic accident in town, in San Fernando, some side street, some suburb, some urban center, some country or rural road. That's maybe you and another car, maybe a third car. I've even seen a car overturn on the Diego Martin Highway extension, but I was on a Sunday. So I guess luckily there were no other cars involved. I don't know if another car was involved and drove off. Could have been a hit and run, but there was not pile up like this. This is one of the things where, and when you look at the pictures, you see one vehicle pretty well smashed, another vehicle, its rear tires are damaged and facing, well, they look like if they're pointing in the wrong direction. A second vehicle well smashed, but then, more importantly, you see 3 vehicles bumper to bumper. I think we need to understand moving at those speeds. At times when we see accidents on the highway, we're lucky when it's just one car, because it could just as easily be multiple cars. In this case, it was 7. I could see 6 in the photo. But it could be worse than that. especially when you get to the point where certain parts of the highway at certain times, depending on traffic, you're at the limit. And then somebody, or more than one people, especially when they're racing each other, wants to go above the speed limit. Just asking for trouble. But you know what? God is a journey. Somehow we just kind of let things go and hope for the best. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll open the daily review. Sean Michael Small here. No ASP Arun today. He wasn't able to make it. Personal medical situation. Routine. Not a big deal. But we should have him tomorrow. But until then, we have some stuff to get through with regards to the news for today and over the weekend. And then also there's a topic that I want to touch on to go a little bit further. We spoke about it before throughout in the past, but there's a point that I came across that I never thought of before, which I think is something we need to start to think about more and give greater consideration to. All that and more coming up next after the break. Stay tuned. This is Talking About the WESN. We'll be right back after this.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience.
Give us a call at 235-5479
for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokaram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this is screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus, quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Welcome back to Talking About the WESN Content Capital. First story I wanted to touch on today, something that I was made aware of over the weekend. So as far as I'm aware, it's very real. TNT regiment ammunition has gone missing. It's reported 25,000 rounds. A source has said 25,573 rounds of 5.56 ammunition for the TNT regiment was discovered missing after physically going through, I believe, the ammunition stores and the barracks, now, there's a lot I have to say about this. First of all, opposition MP Dr. Rudal Monilal, he is saying that this reflects poorly on the Prime Minister, who chairs the National Security Council. That is somewhat true, because at the end of the day, to some extent, you are in charge. The direct responsibility, of course, starts, it drills down. It is the Prime Minister to the head of the Defense Force, head of the Defense Force to the head of the regiment, head of the regiment to the head of the base, head of the base to whoever was in charge of the ammunition, and then whoever was at the job or the task of the incident in question that led to the ammunition going missing. 25,000 rounds. My source says 5.56. The report doesn't say 5.56, but my source says 5.56 ammunition. These are the ammunition used commonly in NATO rifles, modern rifles. Even the Russians have their own version of a 5.56. I don't think it's actually 5.56 millimeters. The dimensions are slightly different, but it's the equivalent of essentially most of the modern rifles, particularly made with composites, will use some version of that size of ammunition because we utilize Western weaponry. It's all done on a NATO standard. So from the AR-15, I believe, maybe some of those private rifles don't quite use the same, but a lot of them do, essentially. So it's an outrageous development. This is a quote. Adds to illicit arms and ammunition that are trafficked into the country through unmanned ports of entry. That's the important part there that Dr. Rudal Monilal is saying. Adds to the illicit arms and ammunition. Well, obviously, 25,000 rounds don't add to the illegal guns, hence illicit arms. But it does add to the ammunition. So here's the thing. Here's the thing about this. Now, I don't know how true this is. This is me putting together things I heard and coming with a hypothesis. A while ago, before rifles became the norm, the weapon of choice, of course, gangsters would be using pistols, right? There was still gun violence, but it was mostly pistols. Every now and then you hear about a homemade shotgun being confiscated, but gangsters using pistols. Not a lot of bullets being fired also. A few rounds here and there with each attack. Normally, it would be relatively precise, not because the gangsters, were considerate, but because, from what I understood, say 10 years ago or 8 years ago, ammunition was actually harder to get than the guns. The guns were easy to get. And then I've also heard, so this is just another anecdote adding to the hypothesis, the guns would come in with the drugs. They would come with the guns to escort the drugs. They don't want to necessarily leave with the guns. Guns were cheap, especially pistols, right? But of course, when, it's not like it's going to be walking around with a lot of ammunition. So once you empty the first clip or two that came with that gun or however much, you'll need more ammunition to keep using it. So from what I understood, in the past, getting a gun was not hard. It was getting the ammo. Now, I don't know how true that was, because to some extent, that's like saying getting a car is not hard. You could buy the Ferrari, just getting the gas for it is difficult. A gun is not something cheap, even a cheap gun. Even a small gun is not cheap, right? I don't know what the price is. I just know that whenever I see stories, particularly foreign stories, but regardless, it's not a cheap product. It's not a cheap commodity. And then, all of a sudden, there was the first attack, the money transfer car. I don't want to say armored car because it wasn't really an armored vehicle like a proper armored truck or armored car, but the money vehicle, the security vehicle transferring cash from Pennywise, got shot up by automatic rifle fire, sprayed down. Never seen anything like it. Now, maybe we should remember that one of the accused a former member of the Defense Force, allegedly, I believe. I can't remember exactly what went on there. And then after that point, it was like the gloves are off. And I wondered, how true was it? Because I was told getting ammunition was the hard part, not the guns, right? This was back when people were using pistols. Now all of a sudden, you know, apparently it's easy to get rifles and it's easy to get rifle ammunition so that we could spray down everything. Now, not every murder has been done, not every gang-related murder has been done with rifles in the last 3 years. Some have been with pistols. Ironically, some of the attacks against prison officers and the like, and shooting up a police officer's house or prison officer's houses were with pistol round ammunition from what I understand. Could have been a submachine gun. Some of those were confiscated with the weapons caches and weapons cache, and those are automatic, 9mm, smaller bullet, less gunpowder, less penetrating power, less stopping power. But perhaps this is a potential explanation as to how criminals now are able to just spray down the place. Because at the very least, it might not be the only source of ammunition. Ammunition has been confiscated. Spent shells with TNT Defense Force markings, and I don't know if regiment, but also maybe TTPS markings has been found. Well, it's not much of a stretch, right? Then there is the anecdotes coming out of China and Russia where military arms and equipment and ammunition potentially have been sold to the black market. That's why Russia now, when they're mobilizing the troops, they're like, wait, why are certain things missing? China now with their rocket force trying to find out, why is rocket fuel missing? They were using rocket fuel for hot pot? Apparently, yes. To burn so that they could have their hot pot. I mean, big-time generals in China were sacked. Supply and logistical issues with regards to military supplies in the Russian war against Ukraine, that's been reported. Not necessarily documented very well because, you know, they're not going to air their dirty laundry for the public to see. Well, why couldn't that happen here? Military corruption to sell military equipment, we've seen that in other parts of the world. Why can't it happen here? Are we saying that the reputation of the Defense Force is so sacred and so unblemished that it is hard to believe? I say no. It's not. Not that I'm saying that their reputation is so bad that we automatically believe it, but I think it's something that maybe we should ask the questions. We should consider it, ask the questions, look for the evidence, find the truth, because at the end of the day, 25,000 rounds go missing. We're not a large country. And I don't think there's any need for the ammunition to be sold on the black market outside of the country. That is a possibility as well. But given the fact that there's a black market for ammunition within the country, there seems to be low-hanging fruit. There seems to be the obvious landing spot for this ammo. And then the hard question we have to ask ourselves is, how many murder victims died to ammo that came from this 25,000? I'm not saying all of them with rifle ammunition was. I don't know. We have to ask ourselves the question. The answer could be zero. The answer could be most. The answer could be some. The answer could be few. Will we ever get an answer with any reasonable degree of accuracy? Probably not, because I don't know if you've noticed, but investigations are not the forte of our primary investigative agencies in the country. Meanwhile, have criminals shot off 25,000 rounds of ammunition? Probably not. And I don't think we've confiscated, if you take all the ammunition we've confiscated and all the ammunition criminals have shot rifle ammo over the last, 3 to 4 years, I don't think it comes close to 25,000. So again, regardless of where we think the ammunition may have ended up, maybe it's misplaced in some storage closet of the Defense Force on an army base. Maybe it's already gone to South America or Africa. Or maybe even it's made its way to Ukraine. Black market to sell to Ukraine, that's also a thing too, right? Maybe the cartels bought it. It's in Mexico. Who knows? Or maybe it's here in circulation amongst the gangs. We don't know. At the very least, we need to know. Now, it's been made news recently that, look, even the American military outside of the Marine Corps, which is the smallest branch, you've got the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Marines are like a very, very mini army attached to the Navy. They've been able to successfully, you know, audit themselves and account for their expenditure. But that's the easiest one. They have 3 branches of service, all of the digital systems and the budget and the manpower and the expertise and the education and the first world status and the blah, 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 blah. They can't, the Department of Defense in the States, they can't succeed in auditing themselves. Which, in a way, kind of puts our own situation into perspective, right? Just want you to handle the audit properly, you know, for any future finance ministers out there. Or the process, handle the process properly. So it's not as though it's unprecedented that you can't misplace things. You can misplace things in the military. The problem is, while I understand it's a very human error and we've seen it around the world, it's one of those things where we're not talking about missing pens or missing notepads. We're not even talking about an office for a private business missing computers or electrical equipment, monitors and stuff like that. We're talking about ammunition. If there's one thing that somebody should be anal about, basically, let's not take things for granted. Let's not say God is a trinity. Let's not say it will turn up. We're not talking about, oh, your nail clipper will turn up. We're not talking about, oh, your so-and-so will turn up. Your hat will turn up. Your shoes will turn up. Somebody borrowed them. Your book will turn up. No, we're talking about ammunition. And not even the relatively less lethal type pistol rounds. There's a military. Regiment standard arm for all soldiers would be a rifle. Not too dissimilar to the rifles being used by the criminal gangs right now. All right. The next story I want to get into today, this one is I don't know what to make of it, personally, because I don't know. So, the State Management and Business Development Company, there's been some ongoing bacchanal with that, and it's hit the news again. There's allegations in court over payments by the former board. Basically, it's one of those, we'll just give out contracts and so we could get people some money, right? The contracts might be overblown, they might be for bad work, non-existent work, what have you. And the opposition leader, now, Dr. Rudal Munilal, opposition MP, he's at the center of this whole thing, and the opposition leader has come out to defend her, and the Prime Minister saying, hold up, that's not what this is about. And essentially now, I guess you could say, on the surface, it appears as though, I'm not saying that it is, I'm just saying, on the surface, right, depending on who you speak to, we have a difference of opinion here. Because the opposition leader is trying to say that it is driven by race and politics, and the Prime Minister saying, no, 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 it's not about race. There was a whole press conference Friday afternoon. I'll be honest, I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it because this is one of those times, I'm sure that the press got some good questions, and at the end of whatever they need to get, this is one of those times I'm like, you're going to come and have a press conference because the opposition leader made a Bmobile claim to counter her Bmobile claim. I mean, I guess. But I don't know if this is official. So now the question is, and this is where, you know, is it a difference of opinion? Who do you believe? Do you believe the Prime Minister or do you believe the opposition leader? Because the opposition leader is saying, hey, this is about race and politics, and on the eve of the election, they're taking us to court over foolishness. Over 10 years ago. Well, depending. Some of the payments apparently might have been coming down the pipe after the People's Partnership, you know, were out of power. And this is one of the things where the government has saying, we have to deal with bad contracts that the partnership entered in. And to be fair to the Prime Minister, he's saying, time out, hold on. We didn't start this today. We didn't start this in 2025. We didn't even start this in 2024. We started this in like 2017. And to be fair to the government, they have been speaking about going after contracts like these that they vehemently disagree with because in their opinion, it is corruption or it is slackness or however you want to frame it. I don't know what the official, I can't remember what official technical term they use when communicating this, so that's my phrase saying that's not theirs. We've been going after these things in the court for years, to the point where I, to some extent, have kind of hit them back with, well, you're going after things, bad contracts in the court, and yet you're also wasting money in your own way. That's a whole other kettle of fish, right? So there may be a case where the government is pot calling kettle black. But the difference is in this case, it's not as though both pot and kettle aren't actually burnt at the bottom, right? They might be hypocritical for pointing out some of the efficiencies or only going after or only trying to save the money that they want to save. It all depends on how you want to frame it and what perspective you have. But it doesn't necessarily mean that when they say that these contracts are bad, it's not true. Now, again, let the courts handle it. This is something that I've said in many things before. Once we got to the Auditor General's case, I'm like, let the courts deal with it. I don't know if the courts will deal with the Paris situation properly. I don't know if they can. I don't know if there's the political will. I don't know if the judge is going to handle it properly, because not all judges are built the same. Not all judges have the same type of calling to a vocation. Let's just put it that way. But it is what it is, right? Political analyst Professor Hamid Ghani, he is saying that, look, racism is the engine of politics in developing countries, but the Prime Minister is trying to reframe the issue to be corruption. So my question is, you know, that I put up there, is it racism, politics, corruption, or all of the above? Well, I think the racial part is just, at the end of the day, a coincidence. The UNC is mostly Indo-Trimegonians. The PNM is traditionally Afro-Trimegonians. Not too sure. With regards to the actual members of government, it's not necessarily like such a majority as it was before, but we'll still essentially say it's a majority Afro-Trimegonian party. So because of that, anything that is political will be seen as racial. Anything. And of course, there are various moments throughout history that have shown that the political parties have been more than happy to bring race into the discussion. So regardless of what it is now, it's going to always be there looming over us like this horrible specter that will be near impossible to get away from. At least right now, it's like a horror movie monster. We could run as fast as we want, but that thing, it's almost like if it just teleports behind us, because it ain't running, but somehow it's still catching up to us. Maybe because we trip and fall over our own 2 feet far too many times. The specter of racism. It's always going to catch up to us. We trip and fall because we have all of these issues that we trip over our own feet, and then it comes back, rears its ugly head. Politics and corruption. That's what I think it is. Because to some extent, there's, no matter how much truth there is, there's always going to be that added motivation of politics, right? At the end of the day, our political class, our political environment is not one of altruism. Let's get that clear right now. our political parties practice winning elections. That's job number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then doing anything for the good of the country comes at number 6. That's what they're skilled at. Winning the elections based on our voter population, our behavior as a voting base, as a voting public, how to then operate in that context and framework to win an election. That's what they do. Governance is not a skill that they acquire. I mean, you can't tell me they're skilled at governance and then we have all these complaints. And to some extent, there's no school that teaches you how to govern. You have to be a well-capable individual, a well-developed individual to hopefully govern well. Even capable and developed individuals make mistakes, horrible ones, once they get into the big dance. So, Dr. Sheikh Mohammed, also frequent guest on the show, he agreed that the Prime Minister was attempting to make corruption, not racism, the real issue, right? But it's a hell of a thing. Now, to what extent do we complain that the opposition leader attempted to use racism? Because this is one of the ways that that racism doesn't die. When someone brings it up again in a non-constructive way, it keeps the racism there, because what's going to happen is she's going to say racism, and then everybody of that race that's the victim in the example is going to feel victimized and is going to lash out. Meanwhile, the other side of the equation is going to feel victimized because they feel as though you're lying about us, so they're going to lash out. And if you've seen political social media, the comments of the general public sometimes are some of the ugliest things that you will ever see outside of a drunk person. Well, I don't want to go any further. They're cussing out the in-laws, or something to that extent. Anyway, the flip side is, how much do we accept the government is doing this for benevolent reasons or because it is politically expedient? Hey, we found corruption against the opposition. Definitely we going after that. The flip side is, why does it seem as though there are other elements of corruption where either they fail, like it's what, okay, we're going after the contracts, but can we go after the corrupt people? And sometimes I wonder that governments do not go after corrupt politicians, even if potentially it is politicians of the opposing party or parties, sometimes because I wonder they're afraid of setting a precedent that could then be used against them. Or they don't want to close a certain door, close a certain loophole, or somebody associated with their side of the line may or may not have had their hand in X, Y, or Z. So let's not reveal the Commission Inquiry Report for the Clico matter because, you know, I mean, the UNC, they didn't do it, and the PNM, they didn't do it, so it makes you wonder, well, both of them don't want to do it, what's going on? What's too big to fail? Who? What name or names? Is it the same name? Is it different names? Are there names? Why does it seem as though both parties have names that they want to protect? Maybe. I don't know. You tell me. Meanwhile, this AMBD case, and this is the one thing where I have to agree with the Prime Minister. This is not a new thing. In fact, to some extent, Dr. Sheikh Mohammed, he said this is not new. And I think he was talking about the topic. But with regards to the case is not new. So it takes a lot of the wind out of the sails of the opposition. Unless they want to say that the PNM has this case from 2017 or whenever long, because they've been talking about things like this for years, right? From almost the inception of Talking Point. You know, they did all of this just so in the 2025 election, just to bury the UNC. Yeah, I know timing, and that's why the politically expedient part. Yes, there might be an issue here. Yes, there's smoke and fire. We're just conveniently outing it at the right time, maybe? I don't know. So it's not that what the opposition leader said was completely untrue. It's not that what the prime minister said is completely untrue. That's the thing, right? In any issue, there's one side, there's the other side, and then there's the truth. And I guess there's no really good way for us to determine what the truth is in this case that will be objectively acknowledged by most people. And maybe we should have high expectations for our politicians in order to prevent us from reaching this point. Maybe that's the solution. I don't know. You could tell me if I'm wrong later on. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, there'll be one last topic I want to touch on, a video to play, a question to ask, a concept to consider. Stay tuned. This is Talking Point at WESN. We'll be right back after this.
I am Dr. Delphina Ovid, your friendly neighborhood dentist. At Community Hospital Dental Clinic, we offer examinations which include x-rays, basic oral cancer screening, and a treatment plan. We also offer cleanings, fillings, extractions, root canal treatment, and complete and partial dentures. Remember, you don't have to brush and floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas, and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
To most economists, an advanced economy is one of those things where you know it when you see it. And I think it's important to mention that as we try to make sense of what is stopping other countries from reaching this ill-defined status. Brain drain is the process of highly educated and productive participants in an economy leaving their home country to pursue better opportunities in another country. This move can be motivated by better paying opportunities, a better lifestyle, or be driven by people leaving their home countries to avoid violence, corruption, or persecution. Overwhelmingly, the most productive members of economies around the world are moving from developing economies and moving to advanced economies. I am massively generalising here, but advanced economies are normally nicer places to live, with lower rates of violence and higher paying jobs. An engineer in India earns an average salary of 800,000 rupees, which is about $10,000 US. In India, that's actually a decent salary, but if they can take those expertise and get qualified as an engineer in the United States, they would potentially be earning 10 times that amount or more. An advanced country like the USA, while it has its problems, is also far less crowded and polluted than most areas of India. So, if it is an opportunity that is presented to them, a lot of people from India and a lot of other countries will take it. This hurts the countries they're coming from because they lose their most productive workers, the workers that will pay the most tax, produce the most value, and have the highest chances of driving innovation to make the country wealthier. They also lose these workers right as they stop being an economic burden, which I know is a very mean thing to say about children and students, but that's what they are. They take more money from the economy than they contribute until they go on to be workers. After their working careers, they once again become an economic burden in their old age. This is normally an investment worth making, either for the government or the children's families, because in undeveloped economies, children will go on to look after their parents while they can no longer work, and in developing and advanced economies, the children will go on to produce way more value in their working lives than the government lost to educating them and potentially losing out on their parents' taxable incomes while they looked after them. High-income, advanced economies also have another advantage, which is why they stay rich. While low-income and developing economies only get the drawbacks of brain drain, which accelerates the problems they have with ageing populations, rich countries benefit from it by being the sink that those brains drain into, which is just terrible imagery, but you get what I'm saying here. Rich countries that are desirable destinations to live and work will get their pick of skilled young workers who want to move there to start a better life. Most advanced countries can pick how many skilled workers they want to enter their economy simply by increasing or decreasing the amount of skilled worker visas they give out. After the global pandemic and record unemployment rates combined with low labour force participation, a lot of governments are opening up to record numbers of skilled migrants. Not only will these workers help to fix all of the problems of an ageing population, they can also act as a form of economic stimulus. People moving to a new country will need to buy a lot of new stuff to get themselves established. New cars, new furniture, new phones and internet plans, and of course, a new house and everything that comes with it. Whether they are renting or buying, a skilled migrant will be bringing money from their home country into the host country to stimulate the domestic economy. A lot of countries' student visa programs will allow students to work part-time jobs while they're studying, but even still, most of the money to cover these expenses will be coming from their family or personal savings back at home. Even if they do take a part-time job, that can often help the host country because they will normally be working the unskilled and not particularly well-paid jobs that people don't care about missing out on. As soon as they graduate from university, if they then enter the workforce in the host country, they are starting out literally at the very beginning of their careers, so they are maximising the time that they can add value and pay taxes to a country that did not have to support them while they were children. This also ensures that advanced economies get the best and brightest workers to progress innovation to make sure that their industries are more advanced and competitive than any alternatives that come from developing economies that lose their most promising innovators. So if this is such a problem that is already stifling the growth of dozens of countries around the world, how can economists stop it? The simple fact is that advanced economies are almost always going to be more desirable places to live and work than developing economies. Not only because they offer higher incomes to workers, but also because they generally have lower levels of corruption, crime and pollution, while also having better access to healthcare, education and other public utilities. Again, of course, this is a generalisation. There are examples of certain developing economies that beat out certain advanced economies in these factors, but it generally holds true. And that's the first thing that can be done to at least slow brain drain. People will be less likely to move abroad if living conditions at home are good, so making sure a developing country is a good place to live is a very important factor in determining whether or not it'll make it to become an advanced economy. Of course, getting rid of pollution, crime and corruption while providing better public services is much easier said than done, but it does highlight the importance of people, even in macroeconomics, where the focus tends to be on big industries and trade deals.
And you could get that whole video on YouTube from the channel Economics Explained. There's more detail in the subject matter. I've just cut it down, I think, to less than half of the video because I wanted to specifically hit on certain points. Now, they also went on the fact that one of the ways to deal with brain drain, besides just making your country more attractive, is to develop an industry to utilize the skilled labor. But that's not so easy. Taiwan did it, South Korea did it, Japan did it, But think about it, like, do you see us going from, well, we could make calculators to refrigerators to TVs to microchips? I don't know. Maybe we could do some sort of low to mid electronics, and you do it in stages like what Taiwan did, and maybe eventually you get into high-end stuff, maybe, right? Do we have the work ethic for that culturally? Is that what we're all about? I don't know. Maybe we could be. Maybe we could do it if we try, as Mr. Shah said. But the problem with this brain drain is it goes beyond what the video said. That's the setup. Here's the thing. Now, first of all, we could already say that our economy, it hasn't not just been able to grow, but grow in a diverse manner, not just variety, but going up the chain with having industries that could utilize more and more skilled labor in technical fields, in STEM fields and the like, industrial fields, scientific fields, information technology fields. We don't have that. Now, we're not going to replace Silicon Valley. We're not even going to compete with Silicon Valley. At the end of the day, if you want certain jobs in information technology or computer science, you're going to have to go to California, maybe India, maybe Taiwan, etc., Japan, South Korea, and what have you, maybe certain areas in Europe. But we're a small country. We don't have to try to do everything. We could just try and do something. It doesn't have to be high-end. It could be mid-end. Who knows, right? Or it could be something in agriculture. It could be high-end agriculture. Like, we don't even know what the possibilities are because we haven't looked into it. All we know is that we have a combination of, yes, crime and corruption and other factors making TNT less desirable for people that are capable. So the capable people leave. And part of the reasons why our economy hasn't been able to grow in that way is because we don't necessarily have the capable people. And maybe this is where GATE needing more planning on the implementation side as to what we give out free college education for would have been useful. To try to offer guidance, counseling, and to emphasize sectors that we wanted to grow. Which we could still do, by the way, regardless of how much opportunity was lost over the last however long decade or so GATE was in existence, and we didn't really deal with it in any sort of serious manner. We just kind of let it be. The thing is, not only are we losing the capable people and they would contribute to the economy, but we're losing the capable people who would contribute to solving our societies and our nation's problems. And therein lies a vicious cycle. We can't grow because our best and brightest, too many of them, decide to leave. They decide to leave because we're stagnant, we can't grow. Because we're stagnant and we can't grow, they decide to leave. And they're the people that would have contributed the most in some of these things. We need more capable people across the board for certain important roles and functions and positions in society. And yet, one of the things I lament on is perhaps we're not getting the best, most capable people in politics. And arguably, we're definitely not promoting, if they're within the service, we're not promoting them, the best and most capable people in law enforcement and the various arms of national security. So then we also have to ask, what does that mean with regards to the fire service, with public health, with education? We know that there are good people in there, but are we really doing enough to encourage them? And this goes back to what I was saying, and maybe even in Breakthrough later today, we'll touch on this if Mark will indulge me. Part of not having national pride and national identity and a certain degree of patriotism, and dare I say nationalism, because populism exists both with regards to conservatives and liberals. Bernie was the liberal side of populism, but they didn't want that. All right, fair enough. The problem is the situation got so bad where you needed to overdo it, essentially. Over-index on we need to get back to a we-first mentality in the United States. But in TNT, we have a we-first mentality in all the wrong ways and arguably in very few, if any, of the right ways. We felt we were the biggest in the CARICOM and Caribbean bloc until we're not. But we didn't necessarily always treat with the responsibility of that position. And we didn't always act in that role with the grace required, not just for others, but even for our own selves. So it's easy for people to abandon a country that at the end of the day, how much love do you really have for the country? You have love for your culture. You have love for the people. When you come down here, all we is one family. But how much do you really love the country? Those are not always the same things in practice. Because you could take the culture abroad. You could still talk to the people. Or the people themselves could migrate with you. But how much do you love the land? that you want to protect it, that you want to help it overcome the difficulties. So this is the thing about brain drain. This is the odd thing. I'm not saying that we should end immigration, but this is the catch-22. Think about it. Our most capable ones are going to be the fodder for immigration. We want the ability to go abroad and make a better life. What does that say about what we think of our country? It says that we think that we cannot make a better life here. Think about it. It says that we've given up. There's nothing wrong with saying that your child wants to work in a field that only exists abroad. Or your child, or you yourself might prefer life with a different flavor. A big city life. You want to live in a place that has winter. You want to live in the American Midwest because you just prefer that environment. You want to live on a big farm. You want to live in a big rural area. You don't care about the sea. That's fine. If you want a different life with regards to the flavor of it, that's fine. There are pros and cons to living abroad, to living here. But when it's not about the differences between island life and continental living, and when it's about the fact that, hey, I want a better life, not a different life, because I prefer different things, a better life. Well, this is what we get. Ironically, and this is not what a lot of people that want to talk about, oh, colonialism and the evils of the empire. No. The real consequence is the fact that our best and brightest go to enrich another country. And I'm not saying it is colonialism, but we get something to that effect. And the video, I believe, did say it. They get richer, we stay poor. But there's nothing insidious about it, you know. And for the most part, we have more control over that than they do. Because we make our environment less appealing, our situation less encouraging, our society less hopeful, more hopeless. So again, you could love the culture, that's fine. Soca, carnival, parang. And then there's a drop off, right? Except, you know, drinking and liming. That's the other part of the culture. You know, and what is carnival, soca, parang, Trini Christmas, if not just different variations on drinking and liming? All right, but fine. You could love the culture, right? The friendliness, the environment that we like to share and to give and to have merriment with everybody. All right. Drinking and liming and another name. All right, fine. But loving the culture is not necessarily loving the country. Loving and promoting the culture is not going to help the poor people get out of poverty. Loving and promoting the culture is not going to help the people trapped in hotspots to be protected from the gangs so that they don't get killed for not joining the gang, because depending on where you are, you have to pick a side. There's no Switzerland in gang hotspot territory. Loving the culture is not going to help the country improve. It's just going to help people make more money off of beads and feathers. I have nothing wrong with beads and feathers, you know, but let's be real. Loving the culture is not loving the country. To borrow a phrase, I love my country, regardless of what the culture is or is not in the moment, regardless of its traditional mass is promoted or if it dies. I love my country. Carnival evolves however it will. Life will move on. The country remains. It is the sum total of our history and the hopes and dreams of our people. And that, to some extent, is what's at stake. All right, we won't take a break. We'll go straight into the phone lines. We'll open up so we could hear from you, the viewers. You could call in and have your say. I don't know if anyone would relate to what I just said. I know when the ESP is not here, because we don't necessarily meet expectations, it's one of those weird things where we'll get much better responses with our media ambassadors most of the time once they stay on the scheduled day. But not necessarily when they break, both on the day that they schedule but don't turn up and on the day that they do turn up sometimes. But you could call in and have your say on anything that I've said and anything that I may not have brought up. There are a couple other stories. I know this is one of those times where I guess I don't know. I do wonder if, because I myself have to worry about my own mental health sometimes, as we all do, and how much could you exist in the negativity. And this actually goes back to what I was just talking about. So like I said, the phone lines are open. I can't actually see if the numbers up on the screen, but you could call in and have your say. Just remember to mute your TV if you call in. Don't try to have the conversation on the phone and follow on the TV at the same time. It's not going to work. There's a delay. But, all right. I was trying to get back to the point that I got to, and I have forgot it, so I won't bother. We have Sanford on the line. Good morning, caller, on here.
Morning, Sean.
Morning.
Yeah, let me go back to your issue with the missing ammunition. Let me say this. When Mr. Dillon was the Chief of Defense Staff, I asked Mr. Dillon publicly, in a public forum, questioned him about that, that is how long ago it was, but I questioned him about that same issue about, at the time I said that there were officers in the Defense Force that were selling ammunition. And Mr. Dillon went on a rant and rubbished that. These are things that I know for a fact. That is an open secret. When Mr. Last year, Vice Air Marshal Daniel is his name, he was on a joint deck, and he was asked the question about that issue because the ammunition was showing up on crime scenes. And he said they were doing an audit. And the last time he said the last time he was on the joint deck, he said the audit was 95% complete. And everything is accounted for. I believe this is the way that they're going to try to clean it up by now saying that it is missing. What I was upset about it when he just said about the audit is because there were no details.
Yeah.
There were no details about this. How long, what is the period you're auditing? From when to when? And as I said, this is the level of complacency within those protective services. But I am, as a citizen, know for a fact that they and other citizens know for a fact that soldiers have been selling ammunition in this country to criminal elements. And nothing has been done about it, as I said, since Mr. Dillon was there, I know of.
This would be during or before the partnership. He was National Security Minister.
No, he became minister after he left. After he left the service.
Right. So I just for the timeline, which administration he became minister under? The first Rowley term or the partnership? I can't remember. It was the first Rowley term.
Yes.
Right. So he was. So we're talking over 10 years ago. This would have come up at the earliest, if not longer.
Yes, longer than that.
Right.
Because there, I had known this was happening, Sean, since the, let's say, the mid-90s. Since the mid-90s, this has been going on. Mid-90s. So this appearing in the media now, it's nothing new.
Yeah.
But and my issue is nobody wants to take accountability. Not one of them will say, yes, you know, this is our problem here. It's excuse after excuse, and you have to have a leak for some for us to hear that the allegations are true.
I think
they're not doing anything to clean it up.
This is one of those things where I think they may not have either they didn't know, they didn't want to know, but now it reached the point where there's an actual figure. It's not a small figure, and it's made its way to the press.
Yes, so I want to know how this figure that is there. Tell us how long. I want to know what the audit period that they've been auditing, because as I said, this is an attempt to clean it up by saying we found this missing recently here, and I don't think that is the truth. I think they have discovered this over a period of time, and they now want to clean it up, and so they're going to say, hey, this was missing. This was missing recently here.
Mr. Sanfanani, the best part is, as Keita would always like to say, this is the ammunition that they know is missing. I won't necessarily put it beyond the possibility of there might be more ammo missing that they haven't discovered that it's missing yet.
Well, the thing is, Sean, from what I knew, they had no, when you take ammunition from the army and you go on the range of practice, there was no system in place to account for what you took. So if it
sounds
is
like Trinidad, yeah.
If you took 50 rounds and you go and you shoot, there was no you're not bringing back the spent shells to say okay, this is what I took and this is what I used. So there's an accountability system. There was none. And these are the things. The problem in the country is that there are no systems in place for checks and balance, or it's been ignored at every level.
Yeah.
At every level in society. Have a good day, Sean.
Thank you, caller. We have Shogun on the line. Good morning, caller. You're on here.
Sure.
Morning. Sorry for the wait.
No problem. I must disagree with you when you say that politics in Trinidad have always been race. As far as I'm concerned, that's a recent thing. Because in the old days, before Williams came here, with the days of Butler and all them fellas, it certainly was not race. That was obvious. Even when Williams came, what happened and what confused a lot of people is Williams educated the people. He went around giving lectures, explaining what politics should be about, what they should do. Unfortunately, these lectures will be in the urban areas. And most of the people who support him came from the urban areas. It's just by chance that most of these urban areas have a lot of people of African descent. But people must bear in mind, people like Tobago, which is almost all of African descent, they voted against Williams. Right? The East, what they call that, the places like St. Andrews and David and Navamayaro and whatnot, they voted against Williams. Right? So that is my people. Afterwards, of course, today it is obvious.
Yeah.
Then you talk about the economy has not grown because of brain drain. I don't agree with that. We always had brain drain. In fact, the brain drain was worse long ago. Today we have more private companies which keep people and whatnot. I have explained to you on a number of occasions bad decisions that was made by the politicians because they did not listen to the public service, or they sit down and try to manipulate the public service as they did with things like property tax and all these things. When the solution was given to government 40 years ago, right? And they will not do it. And the final point I want to make, this fisherman who lives in Tobago, I can't understand the statements again. because apparently they were found in the obvious place, right? And they talk about drifting, there was two, right? And from where they leave to where they find them and whatnot, you should be able to see exactly where you're going. Because from that part of Tobago, you could see Trinidad fairly easily. So if you're drifting away north, you could see that, but I hear nobody say that. So the whole thing sounds a bit fishy to me. That's all I have to say, unless you have any queries or questions.
I'm not entirely understanding your last point, but I think
the last point is they're not saying where they drifted to.
No, that's the thing. From what I understood, from what I read, or what I remember reading is they tied themselves to one of their pots.
Yes.
And they were found by another fisherman.
Where they end up is not far from where they live.
Yeah.
So if anybody, and not only that, they said they was going to put fish pot, and that is logical place to go.
Yes.
Why didn't they look there?
I think because, and this could be one of those things where I myself did not think, they would figure out a way to, the expectation is they drifted. And I guess this is where we don't have experience in these kinds of operations. I don't know to what extent we also had enough assets to cover the area. So, as much as we could...
big area.
Listen, as much as we could see... As much as you could see Trinidad and Tobago from across that little narrow strip of water, when it comes to trying to find a pirogue in that, is not that
yeah,
easy.
But the pirogue also trying to find them, you know.
Well, I don't know. I'm not entirely sure if they had engine trouble or what was the reason why they were stranded out at sea.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I am saying the explanations that is being given, they don't add up. That's all I say.
Well, all right. I mean, fair enough. I mean, you are well within your right to ask or to bring up that, because we do know that when it comes to the sea, things happen. It could be things were done to them or could have been done to them, or maybe there are fishermen who may or may not be involved in illegal things. We don't know. So
I don't want to go on guessing.
Yes, that is true. That is true.
All I say, it's not clear to me.
Yes.
That they come in clean. That is all.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Professor. Or I will just say that again, it could be those cases where the whole how they were rescued, it may lead to questions with regards to our procedures for rescue operations, and maybe the search parties, I mean, to some extent, maybe they didn't do a good job, and that's why the professor asked questions. There's a whole host of, this is one of the things, there's a whole host of questions when there are, well, one question leads to another one. We do have move on. I will say this though, I wasn't trying, thanks for the correction, more or less that's what I mean. Race has been a part of politics for a long time. Yes, it may not have, depending on your perspective, it may not have been there from the very beginning, but it's been there from, I mean, you could even argue to some extent it started because of what you just said, that the rural areas were kind of on a different track to the urban areas. That could be the start, and then it led to the racial divide. Not that racism itself in politics started there. I'll respond to the other point, but we have more on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on air.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Sean, I don't know if it's possible, if you can assist me in this way, but you have information on me. You may not be aware of it. I'm the person who would have sent you a couple of emails. All right, so you have my phone number and such.
Yeah.
But I want to tell you that I would like, if it's possible, if you can assist me in this way, I would like to get numbers for two persons, two of the callers. I think we should network, because we are citizens thinking vastly different to a lot of other citizens. And I would like, if you can assist me in that way in any way, to get on to the professor and Mr. San Fernando. I would like to talk with these people. I think we getting together could do wonders. Notwithstanding that, again, as I have always been telling you, where and when our problem started. Okay? Mr. San Fernando just said it. He said so long ago, that I remember when Mr. Dillon first came to office. The first thing that Mr. Dillon was questioned about publicly was about Trinidad being a lawless country. And you know what he said? Trinidad is a lawless country. And I looked at him and I said, there we go again and explain, because you can't even admit the truth. You're now in the office and you're starting to play games already, because Trinidad was lawless since then. So I looked at him and I shook my head. I said, here we go again. So Mr. San Fernando just raised another issue with it. But let me tell you this. What the professor has just said also, since 40 years and more ago, the politicians, mainly, again, let me tell you, we know which politicians mainly we're talking about, which political party. They were told what to do. They weren't doing it. When Eric Williams was running this country, he was told by the white people, diversify the economy. They warned him about Dutch disease. With all the brilliance, with all the height we have raised Eric Williams to as a great leader, he ignored the white people. All of that is why we are where we are today. All that dysfunction, all that lawlessness. Mr. San Fernando spoke about it. He said, but this thing going on for so long. There are too many things in Trinidad that's going on for so long, and we're doing nothing about it. And the media as a whole still legitimizes this PNM party. When, in my opinion, and in the opinion of others, this party has practically destroyed this country. And this present administration is undoubtedly one of the worst we have had. There are so many things going wrong in this 10 years, and we have this man there who is, with all his confidence, is blaming everybody, left, right. But I think he should find a way to blame Cameron for this ammunition that was not found. This country is in a serious state, and people are, to me, we are not really here in this program, but the discussion is on the periphery in too many ways. You know, from the noise pollution, from the everything. It's a mess in this country. Over and out.
Thank you, caller. Well, you see, this is where I'll have to push against one of the last things that you said there. Because if you just want to take crime, for example, and this situation with the ammunition, and I made sure to ask Mr. San Fernando because I wasn't sure. Mr. Dillon was the Minister of National Security and the PNM, but he was the head of the Defense Force, which is when Mr. San Fernando spoke to him, which is when Mr. San Fernando brought up the ammunition thing. It would have been either under the partnership or under Manning's PNM. Regardless of which one it is, the point is it also existed during the partnership. And I think one of the things we need to understand, and this is why I know you don't like it when I do this, but this is why I do it. Some of these problems are long-term, and it's not as though the PNM have had an unbroken line of power. The line of power has been broken. There have been UNC and partnership administrations, you know, scattered in between. And we're not talking about like 3-4 terms and then one UNC term, and then 3-4 terms and then one UNC term. Recently, we have had so far 2 PNM terms. We had the partnership term. Then I think we had, maybe 1 or 2 PNM terms, and then there was a UNC term before that. Something to that effect. So, some of it will indirectly fall to UNC. And a lot of these problems are actually indirect problems, right? Some of it is direct because of political corruption and things that the politicians actively do. And some of it is not what they actively do, but what they didn't do to allow a situation to get worse. Crime is one of those things. Crime is one of those things where essentially that both you and Mrs. San Fernando was speaking about a situation where Edmund Dillon, amongst others, kind of took it for granted, which is something that we do a lot. You take it for granted. Crime isn't bad. Crime is not out of control. Ayla just said it last year. Crime is not out of control. And I kind of looked at her like, huh? Because at least when Mr. Dillon said it, you could have gotten away with it more. There was more reason to say, well, not yet, but. As opposed to now where we're like, we've reached the but stage. We've reached when the wheels have fallen off, right? But at the time, the wheels didn't drop off. So he could say things like, well, it's not out of control. Don't be alarmist, because what you're really saying to him is crime is going to get bad. Things are bad, but so far, for the most part, by the grace of God and sheer dumb luck, it hasn't gotten out of control. But things are bad. The foundation of the bad has been laid. The situations that will grow into the out of control period of time has been begun, has been put in place. And now it's just a matter of time before the situation goes out of control. But at the time, we didn't reach 600 meters yet. We didn't see automatic weapons being used all the time and all of the other things that are going wrong with the crime situation, 10% infection rate, all that jazz. So it was easy for him to say that then. We didn't see this ammunition situation because, and here's the thing, because he's saying this has been going on long, soldiers selling ammunition. Well, when the criminals mainly are using pistols, they can't use 5.56 ammo, rifle ammo. So they're going to want pistol ammo. Well, when I have a military where, okay, think about it. If I'm a rare area soldier, I'm probably not going to have a gun, right? Now, most soldiers that actually go out to the field, you have an officer in a platoon. A platoon is about 40 or less soldiers. They have various corporals and whatever, but there's like one sergeant and a lieutenant. The lieutenant might have a pistol. That's one pistol. Everybody else, including the lieutenant, will have a rifle in a rifle platoon. And usually, a lot of other soldiers that are out near combat zone, they will also be armed. Some with pistols, many with rifles. There are more rifles in the military than there are pistols. That's their main service weapon. That's going to be the bulk of the ammunition that you're going to have because that's going to be the thousands and thousands of rounds that they're going to be trading with, and if there's ever any action, that they'll be firing off in action. Not pistols. Police use pistols because, you know, that's what you carry around. You're dealing with the public. That's a whole different situation than a military situation. A rifle is a battlefield weapon. A pistol is not. It's a sidearm. It's a just in case. So when they're trying to, potentially, if we believe it to be true, that soldiers were selling ammunition to the gangs or to criminals long before, when it was pistols, I guess because of the nature of what was available in the supply, it might have limited them. Right? If I am an average private, I might not even hold a pistol if I'm just the average infantryman in the regiment. I might not have access to that ammunition. Because as Mr. Simon said, when you take out rounds to do training, they don't account for if you shot all the rounds, retain any unspent rounds. You just take the rounds, and it is assumed that you shoot them all off. Well, if I'm a private, a lance corporal, whatever, if I'm just an average soldier, I could get rifle rounds. I can't necessarily get pistol rounds. And then they don't have as big of a supply to hide. The more there are of something, the easier it is to hide a little bit of it going missing. I could hide 100 rounds going missing out of 10,000 or 100,000. I can't hide 100 rounds going missing out of 1,000. Math is different on scale. But then once the criminals started using rifle rounds, there's a larger supply. Most soldiers probably have access to it on a regular enough basis. And as Mr. Sanfernando pointed out, I pointed out it happens in other jurisdictions. Why not here? It's like the third oldest profession after, you know, nighttime professions and selling your own military equipment in the black market. Betraying your country, betraying your service. So it tracks. This is why I think it makes sense why pistol ammunition was not as prevalent as seemingly rifle ammunition now. And the fact that one of the main supplies is the regiment makes sense if we assume that to be true, and if we assume all of the other anecdotes to be true with regards to how these things went. Now, I will just say this about the brain drain situation. Yes, I know the brain drain is not the only factor, Professor, but I think it is a bigger contributor than we think. Because you see, yes, there was relatively, you want to argue there was more brain drain then, but relatively, I would argue, back then, all of our doctors and dentists, they were educated abroad before we got our own medical school and dental school, right? All of our specialists had to be educated abroad. Yes, we have big corporations now, but really and truly, most of them, they're populated a lot by people that got their degrees down here, basic business degrees and MBAs. I'm talking about technical fields. And again, I'm also looking at the best and brightest of us. Could we really say that the best and brightest of our business management and strategist people, and then those who could take those skills from a technical or administrative or leadership degree, could take those skills into governance? Do we have that? I don't know. Where are the really highly skilled civil engineers to propose and implement the innovative solutions to our flooding and our water supply shortages, etc., etc.? We don't necessarily see the dividends of GATE. So, and in part, yes, we have a lot of corporations now, and GATE probably kind of lazily and clumsily educated people to fill those positions. But just because you have a degree doesn't mean you're capable. Some of our most capable people don't live here anymore. That is the reality. And it will continue. This is the thing. Let's go with what you said. Our decline didn't start because of it. But the current situation is not being helped by it, and the current situation, I would argue, is growing the brain drain. Now, to what extent? And this is where it gets subjective, and we could have a difference of opinion. Prime Minister's newest favorite phrase, apparently. We could have a difference of opinion on it. But to what extent does the brain drain, is it responsible for the lack in TNT and for the worsening of TNT? And I would argue, regardless of if you want to say it's a big or small, I think the effect is too much. However large it is, or however small it is, the effect is too much. And I'll leave that there. For all those who love your country, and those who don't, make today a good day, as Mr. Shah will also say. Hopefully you will remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. But regardless, stay safe, and remember, it's nice to be nice. We will see you tomorrow. ASP should be with me then. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Hi, I'm Claudette, radiographer at the radiology departments at the community hospital. We offer high-quality service with state-of-the-art equipment in X-ray, ultrasound, CT, and mammogram. Come, our friendly staff awaits you.
Give us a call at 235-5479.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best laptops and tablets are at thebesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Stick.